Awesome. All right. Thanks for coming, guys. Thanks for coming, everyone. And welcome to CALUMO. Today, I'm going to take you through the CALUMO application. It's going to mostly be a demo. There's a few slides just to give you a sense of where CALUMO sits in the market and what we do. My name is Warwick Leach, and I'm the VP of North Americas. I am based in Dallas, Texas, so you can always get in touch with me in the local time zone here. So today's session is all about giving you a sense of what CALUMO is and how it works and where it's positioned in the market. So we work with a lot of Dynamics customers today, whether it's SL, GP, as well as the Dynamics 365 suite, the two platforms there, NAV and AX are the other ones. But we also work with customers even with those data sets who may have other data as well in different systems, and we can combine that together into one system. But we are pretty heavily placed within the Dynamics environment. Now, there's obviously some competitive advantages of CALUMO, and we want to share those with you, and I'll be sharing some customer stories along the way, so you get a sense of the sort of possibilities and capabilities that CALUMO can bring to your organization. Now, we are ranked #1, which is excellent in a worldwide business survey. It's called the BARC survey. We've been ranked #1 for a few years in some different areas. BARC, if you've heard of Forrester and Gartner, BARC is similar, but BARC is really more of just a survey of end users from around the world. They certainly have analysts, but they're less about the analyst reports. They're more about the survey results from what their customers say, ranking to products within our what they call peer groups. So business benefit to price value, that's super important because we always work with finance folk. And not that IT or any other department have any less visibility of price to value, but finance folk, and I'm one of those, we're very sensitive to making sure we're getting an ROI. So that's super important to us. Customer and product satisfaction, obviously super important as well. You know, we have a product that our customers recommend to their peers and their friends. And there's some other excellent stats there too. The 2018 results will be out shortly, and we've won even more categories this year. We're very excited by that. CALUMO, by the way, is solves the problems of your reporting, your budgeting, and your forecasting. And that's called CPM technology, Corporate Performance Management. Now, you've heard of BI, business intelligence. Business intelligence has been around for many, many years, so has CPM. Originally, when I first started in this industry a while ago, I won't give away my age, BI was the combination of reporting and sometimes budgeting and forecasting. So it was all under one bucket. And over the years, the tool sets were separated and labeled differently, really. And it's kind of a marketing initiative by major vendors and analysts. And actually, it's a really good idea because if you just want a business intelligence tool, and BI today traditionally means dashboarding, maybe some reporting, maybe financial reporting, but typically definitely dashboarding. Maybe it's transactional reports as well. But what you don't get with BI is budgeting and forecasting. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you've presented a report to someone, the first thing they say is, what if we change the price? What if we do this? What if we do that? That's where CPM comes in. So CALUMO can be used for BI, for your dashboarding, and you'll see that today. It can be used for your reporting, you'll see that as well. But it can also give you the capability to do your budgeting and forecasting and what if analysis too, and you'll see that as well. And it's all in one package, and that's really important. CALUMO doesn't have bolt-ons. So the challenge that people have today with the many data sources combining data together is typically managed through Excel. We know support for MR is disappearing. FRX is essentially gone, although there may be some people still using it. Microsoft Forecaster is out of support as well. So people are looking for tools. And they often fall into Excel, which is cheap and cheerful, but is actually quite expensive when you think about the number of hours that a traditional controller or analyst or any finance person or accountant spends in Excel within the office of the CFO for managing reports. There's a lot of laborious copy and paste and potential for error, but it's often what people use initially. And what people end up creating is something called a spread mart. It's a nickname that we give spreadsheets that have a lot of data from a lot of places. It's uncontrolled, there's no security, it's probably going to be an error or two here or there. When you outgrow those spread marts, and you know you've outgrown those spread marts when it's very difficult to get new cuts of the data, new versions of reports, you can't plan off it. People are asking questions and you're locked away in the office for 2 weeks trying to answer all the questions, and you just have more piling in. That's the limitation of a centralized Excel environment. The desired solution, which is why you're looking at this video, I expect, is centralizing all of your data into one place, not in Excel, but maybe you're using Excel as a front end to get access to the data. I was talking to someone, a colleague the other day, and he's recently working in a new environment where they're very Excel heavy. It's a large multinational company, and he said, we have great processes, but they're people processes. He said we need to automate these processes and take people out of that process, and that's the current stage that a lot of people are in. Excellent process, we can build the reports, it's great, but we have key man risk or key person risk. If someone can't, if someone's sick, their child's sick, they're on vacation, and something needs to be done, you need a system in place that delivers real self-service. Not the sort of self-service where you've got to go hunting for the data, but where the data is provided to you. And that's what CALUMO does. That's the outcome that we deliver to our customers. I was talking to a customer today who is replacing MR, and I asked her how CALUMO is going, and I could tell, it was on the phone, I could tell she had a smile on her face. She said, it's going really, really well. We found a few differences between our MR reports and CALUMO, and the errors are actually in MR, interestingly. So they're moving very, very soon away from MR altogether. And she said, you know, the sort of reports we're getting out of CALUMO, they look really nice. People can access them through Excel and the web, and we're always connected back to our source data system. So so she's very excited, and that's the outcome I love. There'll be a reference case study coming out for that shortly. So to articulate the landscape visually that you're probably in today, whether it's FRX or Management Reporter, they're disappearing. Excel is where a lot of people live. Forecaster, we talked about as well, is disappearing too. And then SSRS is a tool that often gets used. Now that's Microsoft SQL Server reporting services. That's a programmatic tool for building reports only. So reporting, FRX is reporting, MR is reporting, and these are only financial reporting, by the way. If you want other data, ARAP, maybe sales, inventory, etc., you can't use Management Reporter FRX. You need to go to another tool. So most people fall into Excel. Some end up with SSRS that require, like I said, a programmer to make that go. So how does CALUMO fix this? Well, CALUMO overlays all of those different applications and gives you one tool to deliver your reports on any platform, whether it's a Mac, an iPad, or an iPhone, a Windows phone there as well. Yes, you can still buy them, interestingly. Android phones, any web-capable device can use CALUMO, as long as you've got a username and password, whether it's a cloud environment or on premises. So you're able to take away a lot of the pain and agony, the programming from SSRS, the potential for error, and the many, many hours spent reproducing reports and input templates each month or week or budget or forecast cycle, and collecting those templates back. All of that pain and agony goes away with CALUMO because we can use a web interface. We can also use Excel on our laptops or our PCs, and you'll see how that works. CALUMO is very Excel-centric, even though it's a cloud app, even though you can have web reports and web input templates. And now, this is really high-level 10,000 feet architecture. You've got your Microsoft Dynamics database or data. You might have many databases, you might have one. Many companies, you might have one. We draw that data and we consolidate that data into what we call a CALUMO data warehouse. And that data warehouse is pre-configured to accept your data. So it knows about accounts, different segments like departments, divisions, entities, whether you've got multi-currency or not, we can cater for that. And it's also what we call basic budgeting or simple budgeting ready, where you can start doing a budget at, say, your line items for your accounts. But it's also capable of doing very sophisticated planning. Anything from, well, price times volume doesn't sound sophisticated, but it can get sophisticated. I've seen some crazy models, particularly when you want to flex pricing because you set a revenue. So how's that going to affect my units sold, or what does it do for my dollars? So there's some pretty cool things you can do there. So let's have a look at CALUMO. Let's see what it looks like. So I'm going to go to Chrome, and I'm in Chrome right now in a CALUMO portal, and this CALUMO portal is accessing my data. I've already logged in. It takes my username, which is my email address, and my password, and I'm using the CALUMO Cloud edition over here as well. You can see it says Cloud. That tells me it's Cloud. Now CALUMO runs on premises, and it also runs in the cloud, and it's the same software. The cool thing about cloud is it gets updated automatically. You don't have to wait for someone to install a newer version on your server. But the nice thing about having on-prem is if you don't want to go cloud, if you've got data that you deem as too sensitive for running in Microsoft's Azure environment, which is what we use, then you can still run the same software on premises. And we run we have a continuous integration development cycle where anytime some new code is updated, it's added into a fully automated and then manual testing process. So we never have bugs come back, which is absolutely awesome. We'd have unit testing, we'd have a whole bunch of things that make that happen. So if you have, say, a new feature that's on the cloud and we haven't released an on-prem version yet, you can say to us, hey, we really like that on-premise. One button press, and a few hours later, like 2, you've got your on-prem version ready to install. Generally, people aren't ready that soon. So this is the cloud environment, and I'm just going to work within there. I'm going to do something a little cool. I'm going to show you how to build a report in CALUMO. Then I'm going to show you some pre-built reports and input templates. So let's go to Excel. Excel is where power users and administrators who are probably watching this right now are going to spend a lot of their time. You're already spending a lot of time there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create just a pretty simple view, pretty simple report. I think it's simple, but for some people it's quite tricky. I'm going to take you gently through the process of building a new report. And we're going to create a web report. Now, for all of my customers, all of them, they're all finance folk. They've never built a web page in their life until they used CALUMO, and you're going to see that, see how that works. It's really neat. Now in Excel, to use CALUMO, I need the CALUMO ribbon, and I'm going to hit the connect button. I've chosen to store my username and password. If you're running on premises, you can use Active Directory and it'll authenticate you automatically. Cloud does require a username and password to enter, and we can link to your Active Directory as long as you're federated with Microsoft Azure. So there are some options there. But once I hit connect, the very first thing I do, it's just a normal Excel spreadsheet, to build a new report is I click the very first button, Browse. When I click that button, CALUMO's going to open up my CALUMO workbench. And if I move this across, you can see I clicked on Browse, and now I'm in my CALUMO workbench. And I'll just maximize this screen. Now, some of you out there may have realized I'm in Chrome, and you're absolutely right. We've embraced the web as much as Excel. So if we can use and not rewrite code many times, we'll do that. We don't want to waste our time. We don't want to waste your time either. And by not wasting your time, what I mean is we don't want to have a whole bunch of different interfaces for different environments. So it's the same interface you'll have all the time in all of your environments. So training is a day for CALUMO. Advanced training is 2 days, but for most people, training is a day. For your end users, now, and when I say training, for most people, I'm talking about controllers, people who are authoring reports and input templates. For end users, it's around about 30 minutes, maybe less. I have a customer who has users around the world. They have a 5-page training document on CALUMO, and that document tells them where to click to find their data. People read page 1, log in here, and don't turn the page. It's super simple when you create one of those portals I showed you earlier. Now, for the power user, the person who's going to create and maintain reports, or maybe just do some data analysis. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to click this data tab here. I'll maximize this window again. And we have this drawer open. Close it. We call this a workbench because that's what it is. It's a bench that's ready, you know, obviously when you start doing your work, whether it's in the shed or even in the office, you know, sometimes you got to clear your desk to get the papers out so you can review the contracts. You've got to clear your desktop and your computer to do the same sort of thing, or the kitchen bench even when I'm cooking a roast for the family. I like to clear it and get started. So the first thing I do is open a drawer. And I'm going for the data drawer here with CALUMO. You can see there are others here. I'm not going to focus on those today. They're pretty self-explanatory, I guess. You've got your recent items, any items that are mine, like reports, input templates, and views, etc. And the apps here, that's how we create our portals. Over on the right's configuration and help. Pretty straightforward stuff. And by the way, we work really hard with CALUMO to give you less buttons. Give you less options. Sounds ridiculous, I know, but when you have that mentality when you're building software, it bleeds into the user experience. And we do that because every time we think of a new feature, it's easy for the lazy programmer to say, well, I don't know what the user's going to do, so I'm going to give them many options. If you sit down and think about maybe it's a report, or in this case, this interface, and give people an intuitive experience, they don't need options, it just works. So we always go with the mentality, let's build it so it just works. So let's check out how we build a report. We click the data tab, and we go down here and look at our list of data sources. Now, this is a demo environment, so I've got some SL data here, I've got a whole bunch of things, but I'm just gonna click on finance. You have your database, your data source. That's a little technical. Basically, you click on the items you need. All of our clients have one item. So I'm just going to click on finance. And this is going to present me with what we call a cube view, or a data explorer is another way of putting it. And what CALUMO is doing is it's going back to this data cube and saying, all right, give me all the information in this cube so I can start building up a report or an input template based on the data that's in that cube. And that cube is a really important thing. I'm going to move pages for a moment and go over to this picture here, cubes, how they work. You connect your data warehouse to your data sources. I talked about that earlier. On top of your data warehouse, we use these cubes, and they quite literally look like this in memory on your server, or our server if you're using cloud. And a cube is pretty simple. It's got walls. It's multi-dimensional. So if we were to look at this this cube here, this general ledger cube, maybe this wall here is my chart of accounts. This wall here is my periods. My depth, perhaps that's my companies. Then obviously if you've got actual versus budget, you'd see another cube. One cube would be actual and the next would be budget. That's conceptually how cubes work. Now, why do we use cubes? For a number of reasons. One, they are super, super fast. This is the number one reason. They are super fast. If you have a data warehouse and you don't have cubes, you're reporting data directly out of a relational database, relational tables. It's not very efficient to do that. It's not very fast. CALUMO has replaced, we've replaced many times, and MR is one of the replacement tools, software that has taken anywhere from a minute or two to display a report to an hour and a half, which I was absolutely knocked out when I heard this, an hour and a half to display a report. And we reduced that down to 5 seconds. And that 5 seconds displayed the full consolidation of the total organization, which was single currency, but it had many entities and many stores and departments and franchises around the US. So that was a revolution for that organization. And I asked them the other day, I said, hey, what would happen if I took CALUMO away? And the controller said he'd find another job. So we're not taking CALUMO away, they're gonna keep it, which is good news. But those cubes are really important. The other thing is they're super easy to use. There's no programming required. So I've moved back now to my page. So remember, take a step back, I hit browse, click on data, and I pick my finance cube because I want to build a new report. It's super easy. I want my accounts on my rows. Click, drag, drop, net income. Cool, I'm gonna get some accounts. I wanna do something special with date. I wanna grab my months across the page. Click, drag, drop, done. I'm already looking at data. Well, what data am I looking at? Let's just click January, February, March. Okay, well, what year is this? Well, let's drill down here and pick a fiscal year, or pick the years. Now, what I'm dragging here, we call these hierarchies. Anything with the little pyramids or the dots, they're all hierarchies. And these hierarchies, and these are just folders, they're pretty straightforward, they're just folders, and these hierarchies have been grouped so you can grab your calendars easy or your fiscal. Within account, I've got things like my account number, type. You might have accounts here for your normal chart of accounts, cash flow for another chart. So you can grab either what we call the dimension. I'll roll that up. These are my business dimensions, my accounts. We group all of our accounts into the accounts dimension, all our dates in our date dimensions, departments, etc. And within our dimensions, we can create different hierarchies to view our data. That's super important. It lets me do things like this. Go and pick. Now I'm looking at all data, so that's pretty quick to consolidate data. 2006 in this database, this sample data, and we've got some data. Click and drag. So what I'm starting to do here is formulate or get the ingredients out for my report. Now I want a report that has accounts down the page and my months, and I want to see an actual budget variance across the page. I want to create a report that can be published. So people can look at it on a web page. We use the term publish to create a web page from Excel, and you'll see that really, really soon. I want them to pick their departments, and you can drill down even on this screen and see the data move as you pick different, in this case, organizations. I can drill into this screen and pick, say, central division, which is where I am, and see the numbers change. With CALUMO, you've got formatting options on numbers. I personally don't like to see dollar signs in this sort of view. I like to format it differently and do it on the spreadsheet when required. So it looks a lot nicer, but you'll see how we can change this in a moment. I've got net income. I'm going to keep it pretty simple for now, and let's grab scenario. Just grab scenario and drag it over to my periods there, or my columns. Now, we call this stacking, that's a technical term. And what CALUMO is doing is it's writing something called an MDX, a multidimensional expression behind the scenes. Now, if you've ever used a tool like a pivot table in Excel, and many people have, and you've actually linked it to another database, it might be, Excel might be creating that MDX for you if it's a cube-based database or a tabular database. CALUMO can read both too. If it's a relational database, the tool, if it's Excel, is creating what we call T-SQL. So it's all script language that gets built for you. CALUMO does the same, so you don't need to program. If you want though, if you're a hardcore report enthusiast and you want to spend that extra day learning MDX, which a small percentage of people do, then you can learn that, and it's pretty cool and pretty powerful. And we also offer tools to help you with that, and some of those tools are behind that button there, help you write that for you. Me personally, I use CALUMO every day, and rare to never that I ever use the MDX feature, which is good news for everyone who doesn't want to use that, particularly me. But it is available for those super power users. Now, I've got a bit of a problem here. I've only got actuals across the page. How do I fix that? Well, you may have noticed as I mouse over these different, what we call members roll into hierarchies, roll into dimensions. That's as technical as I'm going to get today. I'm going to click on the scenario dimension button here. That automatically opens when I mouse over, and we'll get this screen pop up. Now, this is our member explorer. It's called a member explorer because we can explore our members and make selections. I'm going to pick my actual. I want to have a look at budget, and I'm just dragging this stuff to the shopping cart. It's pretty straightforward. Now, something that's really important to me, I'm going to hit empty there, is the ability to select things really easily, like holding down Shift and selecting a group. And then holding down Control and unselecting one. If you've used tools like pivot tables or filters in Excel and you've got a checkbox, that is the most annoying way to try and select a whole lot of things, is checkboxes, versus being able to hold down Control and Shift like you can in Excel. So I'm going to hit OK, and CALUMO is going to automatically update with my actual budget variance. As we go across the page, we'll see that data coming through. So that's step one. Step one is to get my ingredients on the page. I'm not going to show you all the features. Like I said, it's a day's training. We've got charts. I'll show you those later. We can step back. We can save this view. But what I'm going to do is send this to Excel. And CALUMO has this intimate link with Excel. It's truly integrated. And what that means is some products, when they integrate to Excel, like maybe your online banking, yeah, we're integrated to Excel. All they're really doing is exporting a data dump to Excel. CALUMO is very different, and here's why. If I click on this cell here, CALUMO not only has a ribbon, but we've added functions, CALUMO functions to Excel to get data. See, CALUMO get data. And CALUMO is going to get data based on the location of this function in this cell. It's going to get data for 2006, corporate, adventure work cycles, all periods, actuals, and net income. Now, when I hit the F9 key, just to force Excel to go through its calculation process, CALUMO is going back to my data cube, whether it's on my cloud or in my environment, and getting me the latest data. So let's say it's month end, and someone's posting journals or updating a bunch of project data, and you're waiting for that to finish. You get a button with CALUMO, or on the hour it updates automatically. But at month end, you get a button. You press that button to refresh CALUMO. Because it's a data warehouse, we're not getting, every time I refresh this data on this page, we're not going back to your source system or systems, we're going back to our data warehouse. So you need a button to press to collect your data. Collecting your incremental, your new data transactions out of your source system, SL or otherwise, into CALUMO can take anywhere from a few seconds to a few minutes, depending on how much data you've just entered. Normally it's down towards the second mark. We do that for a specific reason. If you have a system that constantly hammers your accounting system for data real time, you're slowing something down, and you're slowing your accounting system down. That's a big no-no, particularly at month end when you're trying to transact journals, when you're trying to transact processes. It's really important to keep that separate. So you're only ever out by an hour or so, or the click of a button, and then it's instantaneous. So once that data is moved into our data warehouse, it's automatically available in our data cubes, and therefore everyone can see that data straight away. So it's not unusual for customers, another customer of mine, who had a 2-week month-end close process. They brought it down to 8 hours. 2 weeks for 2 people would work more than 40 hours a week, absolutely, to get their reporting done, which was all in Excel. And they had another tool that they were using to try and help Excel out, but it still took them 2 weeks. And we reduced it to 8 hours by automating all that manual labor and manual process. So that 8 hours, that day was spent reviewing with the CFO. It was a comfortable day, posting journals, seeing the updates. And as soon as it was ready, they sent an email out to everyone saying, your reports are ready, click here on this link. To build these reports though, they had to click on browse, slice and dice their cube into a view that was good, and start formatting. So once I'm in Excel, I can format this data any way I like. I'm just going to format a few numbers here. And we always want to lay this out a little more nicely just by drag and drop. I'm just using Excel to drag and drop. Now, I just realized that I really want my net income at the bottom of the page. And you'll see this is another function that CALUMO built for me. So if I double click on this function, net income, it's going to roll up. So now Excel has become a bit of a template using these formula. So if I change this function, we have an editor, a formula wizard right here that can help me out, but I know I just need to change that to get what I need. And again, that's covered in your day's training. Now I can drill down in Excel and start turning this report into something that's more in line with what I want. And we'll drill into gross margin and we'll stop there. So all I'm doing is using my awesome Excel skills. I'll insert, I won't use the keyboard so you can see what I'm doing. I'll insert rows here so we can do that. I'll bold this section here because that's our all periods, and you can continue to format and lay this out as you choose. Now, what if I want to look at in this spreadsheet and just check that we've got the right data coming through in our subsidiaries? We can actually double click on that C member function. And I mentioned before about having a single interface, the same interface for all users. Here's this Member Explorer again, even in Excel. And in here, this is where CALUMO really makes Excel look awesome. If I pick Central Division, now I've got automatic calc turned off, so I'm going to hit F9 just so I can show you this process. CALUMO's going to get data for Central Division. So I've just done away with hundreds, maybe thousands of spreadsheets for some of our customers, because now all we've got is a single template that people can drill down on. Maybe they're in Excel, and in rows and in columns too, and they can drill down on their slicer or their heading section across the top. I can hit the Load All button, go and pick my consolidation point, refresh, and get the latest data. Now we'll put a title in here, income by month by scenario. Oops, I'll spell it right. Again, I'm using my Excel skills. And the cool thing, another one of the cool things with CALUMO is you tend to spend a little more time formatting the numbers, making them look nice. And that's an incredibly important thing to do. And most people don't have time to make the reports look nice, but if you can spend some time making the reports look nice, people are drawn to them. And they'll actually start not only looking at the nice format, they'll actually start looking at the data, which, by the way, we track. We track that when people are looking at reports or not, when they look at them, and where they're looking at them from, whether it's their mobile device or otherwise. So what can I do now? I've formatted the numbers, and I probably need to format the rest of this page and maybe change colors and center things. But if that's enough, I check the name down here of my report. Let's just call it Inc. by month. And I'm going to turn this into a web page. And here's where my customers turn into web publishers by clicking this one button. And CALUMO is going to take that Excel spreadsheet, that whole workbook, and load it into our server. And it's going to convert it automatically into a .NET web page that I can add to any other portal, SharePoint, things like that. And let's have a look. What you see in Excel and what you create is what you get on the web. So you can see there's some borders. I intentionally left them in. I've done this before. I know how this works. I've intentionally left those borders in Excel so you can see them, the fine gray border there. You can see the fonts come through the same. The layout's the same. And even if I click here, I can go and pick some data very quickly. So it's that easy to build a report or an input template. So this is now ready for any year, any department. There's a little bit of data in there, and any organization, cost center, whatever you like. Now this is sample data, so we're just using sample data. So if you don't have organizations, you have entities instead, or you don't even use that business dimension, or you give it a different name, or you want projects in here, we can do that as well. That's pretty straightforward. So let's go and pick 2006. We'll go back here. Now if I want to get some more detail, I can drill down. This report's alive if there is any more detail to have. So people can drill down, they can roll up, and they can do a lot more. And I'm going to close this. I'm actually going to move into what reports look like when you've spent a little more than 5 seconds on them. So here's a classic income statement with some stuff, some formatting. It's got logos. You can add any logo you like. And this is the same data we were looking at just before. I've got some nice title there, some nice colors. I can drill down, separated out my net sales a little bit more. I've got actual for current month, year to date, and this is all designed in Excel, like you saw before. We also have some commentary in here. This is using a formula as well in Excel called the cget note. Very straightforward to use, and when you publish it or in Excel, you can enter text. Enter more information, please. And I'll probably need a comma in there, I expect, with my little grammar checker. Click OK. Now that's going to save that commentary. And I can always come back and have a look at who made what change when. And you can obviously see there that I'm the guy who makes most of the changes there because this is my environment, and I can track. Now, if we had other users entering data there, you'll be able to see their name too. So you can actually have a conversation. That is one of the reasons why CALUMO wins the #1 award on the Bark survey for collaboration. Not just for, commentary is not just used for budgeting, it's also used for reporting. It's awesome. Now let's say I want to do some investigation of this data, and it's actual year to date I'm looking at. I've got a number of options here. Firstly, let's just throw me down into the detail. Oops, I hit the wrong button there. Throw me into the detail, give me all the transactions. So we have a click to transactions button. I'm going to show you that. Drill to transactions button. So depending on the cell I select, CALUMO is going to automatically give me the detailed transactions from your system. Now this is sample data. Your system is going to look different. If we can link to AR, AP, to project data, even to invoices, we can surface that through this interface. It's awesome. So I've just dived from a high level all the way down into detail. I've got my organization split out. Let's drag that out. It's Canada, Central. So we're actually able to get detail and navigate through the detail in here. I can sort and filter this data. So I've sorted Canada first. Let's just take Canada out of there. I could display everything greater than, 100 or 700,000 or 600,000 and filtered that data out. And because I looked at a year-to-date number, it's actually bringing through each month as well. So CALUMO is clever enough to bring that data through. We can bring through other data sets too. So like I mentioned earlier, if you've got project data related to revenue and you want to bring that through, that's absolutely doable. So you've got all the data at your fingertips, but this is transactional detail. There might be a little too much detail for me. So what I really wanted was, I want to see this by month. How do we do that? Well, I could go over here and click this menu, or I could click my linked analytics. And this is called guided analytics or linked analytics. Again, based on my selection there, it's going to show me a report, and this time by month with my same selection. So now I've got a breakout by month, the same layout. And I've got my 13-month trend at the end here, just for something different. You know what? I don't think that's the report for me. I think I need to do some investigation because I really want that organizational and department breakout. How do I do that? Well, we have this thing called Magic Views. And it's magic because based on the cell I selected, when I click on it, it's going to open up that cube, slice and dice, that pivot table looking thing from before, pre-built based on the data I've selected. And CALUMO said, well, you were looking at June, you're looking at corporate, you're looking at AdventureWorks, year-to-date, actual and gross sales. Well, it's dead right. And what I wanted to do was have a look at all of, by dragging and dropping, I can do this, all of my organizations involved. Okay, well, there's my organization. So let's do something cool. Let's click on organizations, and I'm going to hold down Shift, Control Shift, and just pick those ones there. There's a number of ways of getting that info. And let's create a chart just for fun. And there's a chart. Cool. I can change the chart type, change the order. We really should change the order on this. There's a lot of features here, and I can't show them all to you, but let's just show some of them. Now this is fun with more detail and more data as well. That's just sorted my actuals. So let's turn that off. We don't need that really. We don't even need the chart. We'll turn that off as well. Cool thing with that is you can make charts here and save them for consumption on mobile phones. It's really neat. And here's where all of the data sits. So we can slice and dice this data. We can pivot it around. Maybe that's a better view for us for this particular interrogation that we're doing of our data. Then we can drill into the accounts and see more detail. And of course, move it to Excel like we did before. So very, very powerful when it comes to reporting. I'm going to skip over a couple of other reporting features here. You can obviously lay the reports out any way you like. Let's have a look at this report in Excel. I'll just show you this quickly so you can get a sense of that. I clicked that Excel button and CALUMO automatically opens the spreadsheet for me in Excel. I click this button here to take any of these back to Excel. Now, if I've got the Excel add-in, I can use this button, send to Excel. If I don't, we send without CALUMO formula. It's a snapshot of data at a point in time, like the tools that are kind of integrated with Excel. There's a couple of buttons over here worth noting. This far one is the share button you would have seen on your mobile device. It's a pretty universal button these days. You can put it to clipboard or send it to your default email browser. This one here lets you set up help and things like that, specific for a report, which is pretty neat. This is what we call our vault, or our version control environment. And you can see I've published this once or twice before, 74 times it turns out, where we can go back in time and have a look at previous versions. So this is really handy again for collaboration when building reports and input templates. So you can manage the process if you've got multiple people updating reports. So let's have a look at an earlier version and see how gross it is. And there's an early version under construction. So I could go back to that, or I could view the live report. I could download it and use that as a template, or branch out and create a different report. So it means you don't have to save all of those spreadsheets anymore. CALUMO is going to save them for you if you publish them. Super, super handy feature. So I already moved this to Excel, so let's have a look at it. Sure enough, there's our cget function, and there's that cget note function. And all we did to create that was copy a column, whichever one we want to tie the data to, probably actual year to date. Paste it here and change the function from cget to cget note, and it's ready to capture data. It's that easy. Let's close that spreadsheet. Now I want to show you a few other things here. Obviously balance sheets, cash flows, and you can see the performance. And that's the sort of performance I like to see at my customers. CALUMO can do dashboarding. There's so many different styles of dashboarding these days. It's amazing. You can have this sort of dashboard with cell-based in-cell charts like these bullets, where they don't take up a lot of space but give you a lot of information. I can drill down in this report as well. This is really cool on an iPad. We've got a few different examples of that. The one I quite like is this sales dashboard, where we've got products or projects. It doesn't really matter what your data type is, CALUMO can still map to it. And I'm just going to move this menu across to the left. Again, I'm in my portal. Now this sample data that we're looking at here is some retail products, and we've got quantity sold, amount in dollars. We've got revenue up here by period. In this case, it's year. That's interesting. Let's drill on 2017 and get some updates. Well, CALUMO will automatically drill any other dashboard chart based on any other linked chart. And again, it's all built in Excel. It's super easy. So let's look at our major customers. Speakers are pretty awesome. But we're making, we sell more projectors, but we make a lot more on speakers. We're selling a lot more speakers. So let's drill on that. The high-end mahogany, well, who's buying that? Well, Cheetah Concert Hall is clearly spending a lot on that. About $3 million worth, I think. If we drill in, yep, sure enough, Cheetah Concert Hall is spending a lot on those mahogany speakers. Well, when did they buy them? Let's drill down further and get some more info. Spread across the periods and mostly in June. We can also associate maps too, which is kind of fun. But it's pretty easy to navigate your data. I was showing a customer this the other day with their data, and we were looking at their sales throughout the region, and it was quite amazing. They were amazed that some of their salespeople were selling more of a product they didn't even barely knew existed. So they've gone off and investigated why. It was a high margin product too. Then, of course, there's planning, the forecaster component, or where a lot of time is spent in Excel. CALUMO covers that off too, and quite comfortably. So we've looked at your Excel environment, we've looked at some reports, we've looked at dashboarding, and planning is the icing on the cake. Now, CALUMO is configurable for any sort of planning environment. You're going to see some things that look similar here to Forecaster and obviously Excel. All of these input templates are built in Excel. The difference is we've got those cget functions, and they're linking back to our data cubes. I'm going to start really simply. Keep it simple. You can see I've got revenue. I'm going to start with my expenses, local advertising. I've got a few columns that precede where I can enter data. In this example, I can type data anywhere in the white cells. It's really good to color code for people. It's a web page. This actually works in Excel as well. We find web pages are a better way to get people to enter data because they can't break them so easily. People can still do their working in Excel and copy and paste their numbers here. That is not a problem. And even copy this down to Excel to validate their data. But as soon as, the cool thing about this, and even the Excel environment as well, is as soon as I enter a number, I'm just going to enter one number in there for local advertising in July, CALUMO automatically grabs that data, puts it in the data cube, therefore the data warehouse, and aggregates that data for a consolidated view. And we can see that's the first time I did it today, so it always takes a little while for the engine to warm up. But that's pretty quick. Now, if I was anywhere in the world and updated that, HQ can see that number automatically. Now, I've got no revenue, so we can see there it's coming through at negative 50,000. Let's type another number in. I'm just doing some random numbers here, and we're going to clean this up in a moment. I hit refresh. That data is collected, and again, it's consolidating across and down and all the way through. Now, I only have access based on my security to the Olympics department and the US and Canada. I have some workflow. It's kicked off. When I'm ready to submit it, I can. And if it's accepted by my manager, great. I move on about my normal job. If not, I have to come back. Perhaps my manager gives me a call and we can both interact on this spreadsheet at the same time, or this web page. It's super cool. Now, this is pretty interesting. I'm actually $5,000 over budget, and I've got, I spent last year $45,000. I'm going to be a little lazy here. I'm going to type in 45K at the annual amount. And I'm looking at my spread options that have been configured for me. Other organizations will have different ones, and I'm going to pick last year. So I want to spread this 45,000 across the page based on last year. In reality, it's a combination of actuals because we've only got actuals to April and the rest is budget. But it'll give me a seasonal spread that I'm pretty happy with. And there you can see the ups and downs through the season. Now, if I want to be clever and actually think a little bit more hard about this, my local advertising, I remember we've got a contract in place with our local advertisers and we've got a 5% increase from January. So I'm going to highlight those cells. And here's this intuitive nature of CALUMO. It automatically pops up spread options. And the most common spread options are these that people want. And we can configure more as well. There's even, proportional, percentage of, up by percentage of, which is what I'm going to choose. Let's see what else is there. Down. Costs never come down, sadly, although we can try. Add to, add the number 5 to, subtract from, or make value. So I'm going to pick up by percentage of 5 and hit go. And we'll see these all up. Increase by a margin. What's that? What effect does that have on my total? Well, the 5% is going to put me over budget here. And that's fine. I've got some more accounts I can play with, like merchandise displays, but I want to build up merchandise displays from the ground up. So I've got a conference coming up in September, and we need a new display, and that's going to cost us $5,000. Some trinkets for giveaways. We're going to spend $500 there. And a prize. And put that in bold because that's pretty important to me. And it's going to be something amazing for $1,000. And let's see what happens. CALUMO, as you guessed, is going to automatically take that data and consolidate it to the account. I can still enter data at this top line if I want, but I've also got the option to give people the capability to enter data below the line and give them the access to add text or commentary based on that detail. Super handy when you're going back and reviewing a budget as to why you're over or under budget. So some neat tools there. I'm going to show you 2 more things here on this page. One of them is not that you can resize the menu, but you certainly can. By the way, this automatically works. All of these automatically work on mobile devices. What you can't do on a mobile device is a budget. It's A, it's a little too hard. B, we've specifically configured it not to do that. You do need a larger screen to do budgeting and forecasting. By the way, the difference between a budget and a forecast is what we call it. CALUMO can do budgets, can do forecasts and rolling forecasts as well as high-level what-if plans. We don't have enough time to show you all of that today, but hopefully I'll give you a sense that how it can work. This is obviously just boxed into 1 year. I've got a customer that has 13 periods. Actually, a couple of customers with 13 periods. So the way you build your time dimension is entirely up to your organization. So let's throw some revenue in this. So let's have a look at the sales volume input. And this organization sells these crazy named phones. So we know we're probably going to sell 1,000 of these, every month, this particular phone. So I'm going to type in 1,000 and make value. I'm going to keep it simple. Just going to put in one amount for the dog phone. And CALUMO automatically calculates in the data cube. So any other report that's associated with the data cube automatically reports as well. Our sales revenue coming through, 200K, any costs, and the profit, what we're going to make out of it, based on our price. So if I go here and I say, well, look, I notice we've got a bump up of price here. That's not right. Let's actually bump that down by 5%. What effect does that have? Yeah, I think that's about right. I notice our cost is coming down as well. I really don't believe that. So let's change that to, let's see, let's make it, I'll copy this and paste, and we'll make it make value. So I'm going to tweak the price there a little bit. When I refresh that, that's automatically going to update the sales numbers across the page. So it'll smooth out a little bit based on those changes, not enormously, but our cost is definitely smoothed out there. Now, if I fill out all the other data using my spread methods or just typing data in, actually, if we do a tag me, they're very expensive. We only sell 10 of those. You'll see the price, the cost is tiny, strangely. How about that? And there's the revenue. Let's go back to our P&L budget and see that coming through automatically. So it's a really important concept there. What we've actually got is two different cubes at play here. It's like having two different sets of workbooks. One set of workbooks is your P&L or your income statement, and the other set is your sales modeling. We define your models as cubes, not as spreadsheets, but they can all be linked together. So as soon as you enter data in one model, it can automatically flow through. Extremely handy for allocations. If you want to allocate costs based on revenue to different departments, you can do that. If within a department you want to allocate costs based on revenue, you can do that as well. As soon as revenue changes, perhaps training changes its 5% of revenue, that'll automatically come through. So it's quite powerful. Now, the last thing I wanted to show you was this salary environment. These are not the only models, the only type of budgets and forecasts you can do with CALUMO. We've done everything from mine exploration and excavation to solar panel building and construction. So these are just examples. Whatever your business is and your business modeling requirements are, CALUMO can manage them. We've done cell phone tower building for over 10,000 cell phones through here in North America. It's a very exquisite model, manages cash flow, revenues for a number of years. So CALUMO isn't locked in to, doesn't lock you into a budgeting and forecasting or reporting paradigm. We move to yours. So it's very flexible. So, oops, I've gone to the wrong one. This is a rolling forecast. We don't have time for that today. I'm going to show you this payroll planning. And this is just a sample. And what we typically do is we get an export, or we connect up to your payroll system, whatever it is, ADP, Paychecks. If you happen to have it in SL, we'll use that as well. And we'll get your base salary. Could be people, could be positions. And you can craft your input template for your employees modeling any way you like. This is just a really simple one. This lets us enter either FTE, I'm going to enter my spread, use my spread method, and you'll see I don't have a bunch of buttons, I don't have a bunch of pop-up screens asking me what day it is. I just want to get the data in there. As soon as I enter the data, it automatically calculates all of my costs, my on costs. I've got some global what if drivers here as well. What if workers' comp was 400%? Wow, well, there's a big difference. And it automatically flows through. Anything you can do on an Excel spreadsheet, CALUMO can do better. So those calculations you might be doing within your Excel model, CALUMO can replicate those, but on scale, in a more robust environment, centralized, and in a controlled fashion too. So if you make a mistake, like I did when I was working at Ernst & Young a few years ago with our budgeting process, I actually wrote macros to send out the spreadsheets to try and fix them. People didn't run them. When we moved to a centralized system, we were able to fix any calculations issues we had, and instantly everyone had their calculations updated. So that's an FTP load. What if we want to do manual salary? Sure thing. Let's enter in a manual salary. Let's highlight that. Let's give Kim 150,000. See how that spreads. Oh, now I've made it the value. Let's see what that does just for fun. She's going to get a heck of a kick. She's at 1.8 mil. Well, that's not right, is it? So we can highlight again, 150, and spread evenly. And that's going to change. So it's very quick and easy to get data in. Some important notes there. What I just did was actually recorded. So any data that's entered into CALUMO, it's recorded who entered it, where they entered it, when they entered it, and what was the old number. So if I accidentally came in and overwrote some solid data, maybe that 1.8 mil was right for Kim because she got a massive, incredible pay rise, then we can always roll that back. It doesn't happen often, I must admit, when security is in place. People should only be able to enter data into the areas they're allowed to. Although it did happen once when someone had access to a little too much and entered the wrong data into the wrong cost center, but we were able to roll it out in a few minutes. I'm going to give Kim the old 5% increase. I've seen this 3 times now. And again, we can see those numbers change. I'm going to make one last change here. By the way, a lot of people just prefer to have a start date and end date for people. The end date's often open. They have these drivers associated to each person. They have their actuals coming through so they can see. They might want to give everyone an automatic CPI increase and then tweak that from person to person. So there's a number of ways of modeling your payroll. This is quite simple. I'm going to give her a lumpy increase so we can see that flow through. Now this is an income statement excerpt so we can see how it's flowing. If we actually go to the income statement, we're going to see the same numbers. So let's go to the P&L and we can see it coming through automatically coming through. And if I scroll across, there's that 50,000. Now clearly we need to get some more revenue into this model because our costs are outstripping our revenues. So that would be my next step as someone doing this budget. So that about wraps up this session. So just to round off, I'm going to go back over here. To build a report, start in Excel, slice and dice that data through your Cube Explorer, your Cube slice and dice tool, slice it to Excel, move it to Excel, and you publish it and turn it into a report. You spend more time formatting it, it's going to look nice. Your input templates are the same, it's just whether you pick the budget scenario or the actual scenario and what security is being permitted or enabled to ensure that people do or don't enter data in the right place. You can see things like conditional formatting actually coming through here as well. That's an Excel conditional format in a web page. So you do all your design in Excel. So it makes life really easy. I was talking to another customer this morning, a Texas-based customer, and he was tickled pink, absolutely thrilled with CALUMO. He's building reports left, right, and center. Now he's got his data centralized. He absolutely loves it. He's the CFO of this organization, and it's not a small organization. And now his controller and the rest of his staff are learning CALUMO. They have 1.75 hours time set aside for training with CALUMO to do automate their financial reporting that's now manual. So it is an easy tool to use. It is an easy tool to learn. You can get a bunch of other data in here, sales, inventory, projects, accounts payable, and receivable as well. The data world is your oyster. So I'm going to wrap it up there, Mike. And I guess if the guys have got any questions, if they want to shoot some to me, let me know.
I appreciate that, Warwick. I especially like the audit and rollback features that you have in this package. Would be fantastic for budgeting and collaboration on reports and forecasts. Maybe, Mike, do you see any questions? Do we get any questions in the chat?
Can you use trees? Mike, what does that mean?
What trees are an MR or FRX term?
Oh.
And I think it's probably similar to the hierarchies that you talked about.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, golly, I haven't heard that in a while. I don't know why. I look at MR every other day. Yeah, I think that is more like a hierarchy, isn't it? Like a centralized hierarchy. Does MR use that? Do they use trees?
Yeah, they still use a type of tree.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Look, we can't convert. Honestly, we cannot convert an MR report. We can't plug it into some sort of scanner and pop out a CALUMO report at the other end. What we do though is we'll take those templates and like working with a guy, Eddie, at the moment, he's given us a bunch of templates and we said, look, we need to isolate these MR templates to to two major things. One, your P&L, the other, your balance sheet. And we need a structure that we can use out of those templates with those account groupings that we can use for our consolidations in CALUMO. And then all the other templates are really redundant because they're just different columns and different groupings of those accounts, whether it's summary or detail. Maybe those accounts are combined with other segments within the report as well, but all of those segments become different dimensions. So we have to recreate, if that makes sense. And it's a pretty quick process, but we do like to spend more time in there to make sure that we've got it right, because everything comes out of that cube. And like I mentioned earlier, that customer of mine, Hunter, who I spoke to earlier today, we got that cube right, like we always do, and then he's just building reports like nothing else. He's got all his production data coming out. He's very excited. I think Steve asked the question, how difficult is it to add new data elements to the data warehouse once the initial setup is complete? That's a pretty interesting question. So there's a whole bunch of different data elements. If we take a simple data element, I'll go back to this sort of more raw form, like a new account. New accounts are very easily managed. If there's an account grouping we can use, and normally you'd have account numbers here, the sample data doesn't, but say there was a new employee account and the salary accounts were within a range, we'd insert it in that range, kind of like MR. But if for whatever reason that's wrong or we can't use the ranges, we have this thing called dimension maintenance. And did I click on that? Maybe disabled for me based on my security. But what that does is it's an environment where you can actually manage. So say you get a new account, you can drag and drop that like a power user, as a semi-admin user can drag and drop that account into the right place, hit save, and it'll update here, this list, this hierarchy, and it'll update all the reports as well. So that's I guess one data element. The other data element would be, say, a new company. That's a little bit more effort, but interestingly not a lot, as long as it's using the same chart of accounts. Any new data will automatically come through, as will those new accounts and things, but we'll generally set up a flag and send an email when there's some new metadata. The other data element, which is really interesting, is, let's say you want to add entity, or maybe split departments out, or maybe, oh geez, we forgot project in this view. That takes a little bit of work, but nothing like the initial setup. All we need to do is make sure that the views, we use views to get the data out of SL and other systems, have that column added. We add that column, and it's probably going to be a dimension to our data warehouse. So, depending on how sophisticated that change is, and another, adding project, for instance, generally isn't that sophisticated. It's quick, like, anywhere from 2 to 16 hours, 16 at the wild outside, to add that in. And that will not affect existing reports. And that's a really important thing to note. So if we added another business dimension to any of these input templates and reports, these reports will continue to work. Now, our background, the founders of CALUMO, we used to work with a product called TM1. That was our history, and we wrote CALUMO on top of TM1 because it was really just a database with quite a poor front end. So we wrote a web front end and a whole Excel interface. And then when SQL 2000 and 2005 came out with cubes, we essentially ported that code across. So we were running on 2 platforms, and we still have. We don't support or we do support the other platform, but our primary focus is the analysis services code. We don't do any work in that TM1 space anymore. And there were a whole bunch of reasons for that. One of them was when you change a data element like a dimension, all of your cubes are destroyed. You need to create new cubes. You don't have to do that with CALUMO. And all of your reports and input templates are destroyed. That is not a problem with CALUMO either. You can add and remove. If you removed accounts, that's going to be a problem. If you remove date, it's pretty core to everything. But if department wasn't used on any report and you removed it, all the reports are still going to work fine. So So there's two facets to that data element change. There's your input templates, your reports, your dashboards, and then there's the database. From a reporting front, it's extremely quick. From the database front, like I said, I'm ballparking anywhere from 2 to 16 hours, depending on complexity.
Let me clarify that question a little bit. Say you had Dynamics SL and it was up and working, and then you wanted to integrate with Microsoft CRM, and you identified
Right.
16 fields that you needed to sync and link over. Is that in the 16-hour range you were talking about, or?
It could be. That sort of thing. It's going to take longer to add, and that depends on how connected the CRM is to SL. So, I'm just thinking about, say you've got different customer codes in both, then there's got to be some mapping created and set up. That's going to take time, and there probably are different codes there. So there's things like that to consider. If you've got, say, salespeople in both, maybe you store contract information in both. If they've got different keys, different IDs in both systems, maybe even different naming, then there's got to be mapping. And that's where the harder work is going to be someone sitting down and scratching their head, saying, all right, well, that equals that, and that equals that, and that equals that. And actually 50% of that goes there, and 25 there, and 25 there. So that will take longer. From a technical point of view, once all of that's set up, to build a cube, you're looking at, keeping it simple, anywhere from a simple environment, anywhere from 8 to 40 hours, say.
And let's take that CRM example. Let's say we designed this cube and we forgot a field, or later on we've added a field that's become important. What does it take to do that mod later on?
That is pretty straightforward. Assuming it's not a destructive modification, but you'd be looking around about the 4-hour mark, roughly.
Yeah.
And that's modifying a SQL Server data warehouse. We use we take a Kimball approach, so it's star schema, and you may have some data staging to go through and modify, but normally that sort of thing generally is a pretty quick process.
And let's kind of throw a curveball question at you. I mean, from Microsoft's point of view, everybody ought to be using Power BI.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see Power BI fitting in this? I mean, all the stuff that you're doing is stuff that looks to me like would replace Power BI, but do you see Power BI?
We actually work with Power BI from time to time, and I quite like Power BI. It's pretty neat. There's some cool things to it. The tabular database is getting better and better. Microsoft is spending a lot of money on it, and I don't know if you noticed earlier, we had down here we had a few different tabular interfaces that we can use. So CALUMO, so if you build something, these are all built in Power BI. So CALUMO can connect to that. Power BI makes some really nice dashboards, there's no doubt. So if you don't want to use the CALUMO dashboarding, where is it? These dashboards with CALUMO, you certainly don't have to. You can use Power BI. But what Power BI cannot do is it cannot give you an income statement easily. To do something like this in Power BI, what I've seen our customers and our other partners do, you can't do this. You can't create something that looks like anything like this. It gets close. It's a table, a very basic table. They actually have to create a table within SQL Server and do a direct query to SQL Server, which is a pretty cool feature of Power BI. And that table literally has a record that says net sales and has the post-calculated data in it. Gross sales is also a record. In CALUMO with the cubes, it's an aggregate, so you can always drill down and roll up. You don't get that capability in Power BI. Financial reporting, that's just not its thing. Budgeting and forecasting, that's just not its thing. But dashboarding, yeah, absolutely, Power BI is cool. But if you need to go beyond that dashboarding, then CALUMO is your answer.
Okay, well, we probably ought to wrap it up. Did you see any other questions there that we should answer?
I don't think so. Combining you asked combining company, or maybe it was the other mic.
Yeah, go ahead and just answer that question.
I don't know what that means. Are we consolidating companies?
All right.
It's probably
Yeah.
consolidated.
So what happens is a client will have 8 or 9 companies within SL, and they want 4 companies in one income statement, 2 companies in another, 8 departments in another. And we're going to pull some information from Oracle into this too, but we want to slice and dice our companies the way we want to do it. By department or by company number, or and then when I hit that, and then when I hit the little thing there, I want to see that when I explode that, I want everyone to see that this sales number is made up of these 5 companies, and they have produced this sales for this month or this period.
Right. Yep. Okay. So that's actually pretty straightforward for CALUMO to do, and you've got a couple of options. If I imagine organisation is company, and these are my companies, we can consolidate these companies any way we like, and we might use the dimension.
How about European and North America? Yeah.
So if you want to see these two together now.
No, I want to see Europe and North America together.
In columns or aggregated?
To get aggregated.
Right. You click here, and we'll load all. We hit European and North America. Hold down Control, and I can hit this checkbox even, and hit OK, and that'll automatically aggregate the two.
Okay. Now this is for this specific report. So the next report, I want to see European and Asia together. Same kind of thing. I can still use Europe in more than one company, but I can also combine it however I want to. So that, I mean, so what I'm looking at is administrative costs over 8 companies. I want to see them all together, see what my administrative spend is, and then I also want to make sure that they're all available in my total.
Yep. You know, what I would do is I'd actually have different hierarchies, like a few different hierarchies. So you've got a couple of choices. This is just one hierarchy, and I can group a whole bunch of things together as I please. And this is sort of ad hoc. But you know, if I often want to see the combination, maybe in column form, I want to see European and Asia, and then on another report, slightly different layout, I want to see Europe compared to or combined with US. You might have more than one hierarchy, and if we go over here, sort of like date, where I can group my months into a fiscal year or a calendar year, but you'd see it, where are I? I'm in the wrong place. You'd see it here. I might have an organization structure, traditional, and then you know, whatever the different names are that you want to give them for those different reporting types. That's probably the easiest way to do it. And then then those different reports will display those lists, and people can just pick and choose if, or it always defaults to that selection.
Okay. So they could also do the same thing with projects if they had, say, they wanted to look at all the concert projects as a project type of concert or a project type of conference. They can combine those and get the same information. Good.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you want to get some groupings there, so you can drill down, so you can see, all right, here are all our project types. I really want to focus on conferences, and I want to see how those conferences are going across Europe and Asia. So I don't know what my project database looks like, but this is gonna give you a really bad example. They're my different project types, or maybe different projects across companies. You know, how do they look? We can see a scattering there. Great. And obviously, it's a pretty report.
Yeah, the people that we think use this project, use this product the best are companies that have a lot of details and a lot of spreads that they want to use. You know,
I think you're right. Yeah, the more sophisticated companies, more sophisticated organizations. Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, Warwick, I appreciate your time today and a great overview of the product. And if anybody has any questions, they can contact Mike Milligan at mmilligan@acccu.com, and we'll be happy to talk more about it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Michael, you got anything else to add?
Nope, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you much. All right, we'll let everybody go. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you. Bye-bye.